Do you need to develop a risk matrix for your organization, but you do not know your risk appetite exactly? Risk Appetizer lets you choose between sets of risky choices and uses your choices to construct a risk matrix that is in line with your risk attitude. This takes 20 minutes of your time and offers you a better understanding of your own risk attitude and how this influences your risk matrix. An example will illustrate the benefits of Risk Appetizer. This risk matrix shows probabilities on the horizontal and losses on the vertical axis. When you have identified a set of risks, a risk matrix can be used to plot these risks and identify risks that require priority in controlling. For example, the top right cell in the risk matrix stands for a risk of losing 1,000 with a probability of 90% and a 10% probability of losing nothing. Risks in the red cells fall outside your risk appetite and are unacceptable to you. Risks in the green cells fall inside your risk appetite. They are unwanted, but are, given your risk appetite, still acceptable. The up and down button on the left changes the number of red cells in the risk matrix. The change of color in the cells is determined by your choices in Risk Appetizer. It is determined by your risk attitude. You still need to decide yourself how many cells are colored red. For example, when you figure out for yourself that at a probability of 10%, a loss of 800 is still acceptable, but a loss of 1,000 is not. This can be a helpful reference point to decide where to put the boundary between red and green cells. A graph illustrates the risk attitude that follows from your choices in Risk Appetizer. On the horizontal axis, monetary amounts are shown, both profits and losses. The vertical axis shows the pleasure you derive from profits, presented in green, and the pain you derive from losses, presented in red. Notice that the example shows a sharp rise in pain for losses higher than 500. In the risk matrix, this is reflected in a risk-averse attitude, in which cells with a low probability and a high loss are colored red. Risk Appetizer thus shows you your risk attitude in a pain and pleasure curve and how this risk attitude influences your risk appetite in a risk matrix. Risk Appetizer needs some settings first. It first needs to know the maximum profit your organization can realistically earn in a year. It next needs to know the maximum loss that your organization can realistically bear in a year before serious financial distress, insolvency, or bankruptcy occurs. Finally, Risk Appetizer needs to know your organization's probability of facing a favorable future scenario, usually a scenario in which profits are made. Risk Appetizer uses these settings to offer you risky choices that are aligned with the circumstances your organization faces. Keep the values you choose here as settings in mind when you make choices in Risk Appetizer. They are helpful reference points when you choose between risky options. Risk Appetizer lets you choose between risky options. These options are presented in circles. For each option, the probability and outcome of favorable scenarios are presented in blue. For unfavorable scenarios, the probability and outcomes are presented in orange. In this example, the option on the right offers a 75 profit with an 80% probability and a loss of 300 with a likelihood of 20%. The option on the left has the same outcome in both scenarios, neither a profit nor a loss. This represents a safe option where your organization's revenue exactly match its expenses. Safe options are used by risk appetizers only at the start to assess when risk-taking becomes attractive to you. Choose an option by clicking on it. Risk Appetizer responds to your choice by adjusting the favorable blue outcome of the right option. When you prefer the left option, it offers a new choice where the right option is made more attractive. When you prefer the option on the right, Risk Appetizer offers a new choice where the right option is made more unattractive. Risk Appetizer interacts with you in this way 5 times in search of an optimum, where you really do not care anymore about choosing left or right. Risk Appetizer then requires you to confirm that the left and right options have become similar. By choosing no, the cycle of 5 choices is repeated, which allows you to correct possible mistakes that you made. By choosing yes, a new set of risky choices is presented to you. Risk Appetizer needs you to finish 11 choice cycles before it returns a risk matrix and a pain and pleasure curve. During its trial period, you can use Risk Appetizer for free, anytime you like, and compare your current results with previous ones.